Today we are going to be making homemade applesauce from the Johnathan apples that we purchased from Box Orchard in Washington, Missouri. Some of the things that you're going to need to make applesauce today: a peeler and a core. You can do it by hand with like a carrot peeler and just cut it off the core if you want. I choose to use this. This one you'll see in a little bit, it actually gets mounted to a piece of wood. That way it's not like flat on the table. This one was given to us and it does not work the best. John tried it out today and it wasn't peeling like it should. This one also is supposed to be suction cupped to the table, but it's just not the best. An extra bowl to put the pureed applesauce in, a food mill, and whichever, oh shoot, I don't know what they're called, but like whichever plate that has the holes, strainer thing, whichever one you want to, that will help the texture of your applesauce. I want it chunky, so I'm using the big one. You're going to need lemon juice, and you're going to need 2 more pots. 2 of the pots, one of the pots is going to be for the peeled and cored apples, and then the other one would be for the discard. In addition to the equipment that I just showed you, you're going to need a big spoon to stir into the pot where the apples are cooking down. You're going to need a ladle to spoon into the food mill and then also into your jars, a funnel for your jars, lids, and rings. I'm using quarts today, regular mouth, so I need to go ahead and get the flats. I have the jars actually in our dishwasher right now sanitizing. I have chosen to do quarts because my family can eat that in one setting. It is up to you what size jar you're wanting to use for your applesauce. The size jar will depend on the processing time and the water bath. The water bath is something else that you're going to need too. This is my water bath. I think I got it from like Dicky Bub or Orscheln's or something like that. You don't have to use a water bath. You can use a large stock pot that is big enough where you're going to have water over your jars. You don't have to have this lifting rack, but you need to have something underneath your jars as a buffer. That way your jars won't rattle on top, like right on top of that. You can use like a dish towel, just fold it up and put it underneath where your jars are going to go and then fill it up with the water. I'm just going to use this because I'm going to be using quarts, and the only pots I have big enough are actually the ones that I'm using to cook down the apples right now. I'm going to show you how to do this again. You get your apple. I always use the bottom side to put it on these prongs. Push it on there, and then you start cranking. As you twist, this is actually going to be peeling your apple, and the core is going to be coming through the hole, this opening. Now the peels and the core that normally what you would discard, you can turn that into homemade apple cider vinegar. The apple cider vinegar that you're going to be making at home might not have the same acidity that you would find at a store-bought apple cider vinegar, but you can still cook with it. What I'm actually going to be doing is I'm going to try to make a like a coffee syrup out of this, turn it into like an apple pie coffee syrup. To release this, to pull it back, to reload it, you pull this trigger and pull back. This apple peeler might not take off all of the peel, and I'm okay with that for our applesauce. Some of you might not be, but what you could do is just like literally take this and just break it off, and then you can just put this in your toss pile. This is a book that I am going to be referencing whenever it comes to our demos on how to can. If you're wanting to follow along or do this yourself for more detailed instructions, go to page 36, and it is for their applesauce. I did forget to weigh out how many pounds that we're working with today, but I'll show you how many quarts we end up with. While you are working on putting your applesauce through the food mill, go ahead and get your water bath, whatever you're going to be using for a water bath, prepped with some water in there and start heating this up. You will need your jars to be warm to hot, approximately the same temperature as your applesauce, and the water in the water bath. If you have cold jars and it's hot water, it's going to be a thermal shock and you're going to break your jars. So try to have everything around the same temperature. Wyatt and Nora are fighting. I'll be right back. Okay, we're getting ready to put the applesauce into the jars. There's a few things that I forgot to mention that you're going to need. In order to distract the children, I have the lion guard on, so you might hear that in the background, sorry. So I'm going to tilt you down, that way you can watch what I do. You need to leave at least a 1/2 inch headspace. The headspace means the length or the distance between the top of the produce or your food and the top of the jar. So what I'm doing right now is I'm using a butter knife because I don't have my debubbler. You want to go ahead and do this to get any of those bubbles out of there, and also it helps the applesauce settle down. Now with the vinegar and the paper towel, what you're going to do is get the paper towel wet and go around the rim of the jar. You do that to clean it off, and that way you're ensuring a good seal from the flat. And then your ring. You don't want to over tighten it. How I do it is I tighten it just enough to where it starts to turn the jar. So that batch of apples got us, what is that, 7 quarts. This one is a little bit lower than the others, but I'm okay with that. So now we're going to be bringing up the water bath to a rapid boil, and then you're going to start the timer for, depending on your area. Our area is going to be 15 minutes for pints 4 quarts. John's making dinner for us while I finish up the apples. I'll bring you back whenever the time is up, and I'll show you what they look like. When you go to start a new canning project, all of your jars, you need to inspect them for chips, cracks, nicks, any of that. I did not do that prior to starting the canning process today, and I should have. This jar, which is one of the older ones because it is square, it has a chip, right there. missing out of the top. If I would have tried to use that, I probably would not have gotten a seal. Most likely would not have gotten a seal because it's not flat for the actual flat to adhere to it. Another thing with the flats, you need to double check to make sure that the brown ring is in good condition and there's no marks or nicks missing out of that, because that is what is going to heat up to seal to your jar. The timer went off about 5 minutes ago. It's time to go ahead and pull them out. Instead of using the jar lifting rack, I'm just going to go ahead and use my jar lifter. I am going to place it on a towel to sit for the next 12 to 24 hours. You want to make sure not to mess with them, not to touch them while they're chilling, because within the next couple hours you're going to be able to hear the pings if they seal good. Sometimes you won't hear the pings necessarily, but most of the time you do. I hope this video shows how easy it actually is to make your own applesauce and to can it properly. For more information, please reference that book that I showed you earlier, The Complete Guide to Home Canning. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I will try to answer them as the best of my ability. I am still learning as I go. I have done applesauce in the past. Obviously, I'm pretty rusty about how to explain it. I hope the next video is a lot smoother. Thank you for joining us today. I'll see you next time.